Hey everyone, welcome to the Intercoin Show, where we discuss how crypto, blockchain, smart contracts, and other new technologies can help people on the ground, communities. If we don't do this, if we don't pull together, then we're going to just live in a world where large governments and corporations issue our money, create our social networks, and we're just going to have to live inside their worlds. So here, we're trying to create something for the people, but also by the people. So with that, as usual, we have Stacy Brown, our host, and she's going to introduce our guests this week. Stacy.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start. I want to welcome everyone for coming to the Intercoin Show. My name's Stacy Brown, and my job with Intercoin is building the community. I'll give just like a brief introduction of Intercoin as a tech company. We specialize in building decentralized products for communities. Every Wednesday, we host the Intercoin Show. We pick important guests with communities in mind. We often ask questions to the guests that will kind of give us like a bit of insight of what we should continue to build to assist communities for their growth. Our existing and future products cater to basically any type of business, any type of community, anything like that. Additionally, in the past, we've worked with politicians building solutions basically for their needs. Some markets that we're about to jump into in the near future include like celebrities, nonprofits, influencers, cities, schools, charities, sports clubs, and so on. Basically, like any sort of community. Over the next month, Intercoin will be launching some new products. First off would be the Intercoin App. The Intercoin App will basically be used to automate a lot of stuff for us, connect our community, the same thing that we would do for apps that we build for other people. There'll be a lot of features in there for people to check out. Secondly, NFT Remix, our NFT platform, will have some brand new concepts that I have not seen in the industry yet. So those will all be revealed soon. Today, we actually have 3 special guests. I want to say thank you, welcome, thanks for coming. We got Thomas, he's a local currency designer at Informal. We got Sterling, which is a 17-year-old master social media marketer. He also is the CEO of Social Proof. Jahmarley, who has an extensive background in blockchain, and he's also going to be talking about his experience as well as blockchain business trends, which is a Web3 news source. And I don't know, Greg, you know Thomas the best. Did you want to kick it off and start with him?
Absolutely. So Thomas and I have spent the last hour talking about how we can bootstrap the community currencies in the economy. And I think it's important to understand that it's not simple to get people to start using a new currency, obviously. And what Thomas specializes in is analyzing cycles. How can you get, when person A pays person B, and person B pays person C, and then person C pays person A, if you can identify those cycles, then you can essentially get that private currency or those debt obligations resolved without involving a bank, without everyone paying 3% per transaction or some sort of interest rate on their credit and all these other things that normally the banks just extract money from the society. And so that creates efficiencies and so on. With that, I'd like to introduce Thomas. Maybe, Thomas, you could say a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in this. I should say, by the way, it's pronounced Tomaj, not Thomas. Tomaj?
Just hit your mic.
It was working before. And Tomaj, we can't hear you. It might be something with your microphone. Well, in that case, maybe we should circle back and have that discussion later. Stacy, we could do the next interview, and I'll try to see what's going on over there.
Sure. So we got Sterling. I want to welcome you and thank you for coming. I met him on LinkedIn, and I'm not even sure how we connected, but I was totally amazed with, he's 17 years old and totally amazed with what he has going on. Did you want to just introduce yourself, Sterling?
Sure thing. Yep. So I started on LinkedIn like last year. Actually, no, that would have been 2 years ago. Right after I turned 16, I started on LinkedIn. And basically my goal in starting on LinkedIn was to build a community where I could, in the future, launch businesses and show them to my community on LinkedIn. So that's why I started young on LinkedIn. Now, I also am an employee at a tech company that kind of pays my bills. And then I do start different websites and try different things, start different apps. But mainly I spend time on LinkedIn. I spend time on trying to learn how to sell to people, because it's so hard to master the art of selling. And yeah, I just love I love helping others with the advice, or with what I've learned. I love telling other people about it, and I love posting on social platforms. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Like, I forget the number, but like, how many LinkedIn followers do you have within 2 years?
So in 2 years, I've got 30,000. Yeah, right at 30,000.
Okay, and did that take off right away, or what would you say really like made you different, that you started getting so many
in
followers?
the first probably 8 months, I was kind of learning how to do it, and I didn't really grow that much in the first 8 months. I might have had 3,000 or 4,000 followers, but then I kind of figured it out, and then it just kind of took consistent posting and just kind of doing the same thing over and over for day after day, and it just kind of gains followers. And yeah, I kind of cracked it. I think I'll probably be at 100,000 followers in the next year. So yeah.
And that's on LinkedIn, which is much harder to get followers on LinkedIn than Twitter, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that is LinkedIn. Now, I do have a Twitter account that I'm also trying to grow, but it seems like Twitter's harder, but that's just because I know LinkedIn. And yeah, YouTube and Instagram, I'm also learning those algorithms, but yep.
Now, would you say just being constant or timing of your posts? Like, could you give any advice about that?
So basically what it comes down to is a lot of people on LinkedIn are business owners, and they're out to make money, and they're not really out to spend money. So a lot of the posts I make are not selling something to people, because they don't want to be really sold stuff to, basically. So I call them kind of mind vacations. So if you see my post in your feed, you're not going to be sold to. You're likely just going to read something. It's usually going to be like motivation or about entrepreneurship with like a cool video to go with it, because videos do best. And I just post twice a day, and there's not really a code to crack. I mean, it kind of is a code to crack, but like I do different times. Sometimes work better for me, and I just kind of do it as I have time. And yeah, it's kind of fun.
Does somebody else have something else to say? I don't want to hijack the show.
No, I think I want to know more about what kind of projects you work with. When you do promoting and you do marketing, what do you typically do with social proof? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so a couple of the ways I make money through LinkedIn. So one of the ways is I have 30,000 followers, so I can reach out to businesses and ask them if they want to promote their business in my post, and they just pay per post. So one big company would be HiRect, that I've done a lot of sponsored posts for, and then just some other one-time posts for other small companies. Along with that, I have Social Proof. That's just a SaaS project I started. Basically, it's for website owners. They can add social proof notifications. If you're familiar with the term social proof, basically it tells new visitors that this website has customers that are happy with the products. And normally when a new visitor sees that a customer bought a product and liked it through like a review or something, it pushes them to buy the product even more. And basically social proof is just the platform where you can show those notifications on your site. So you can sign up for social proof, you can add a couple lines of code to your site, and then you can configure notifications to show on different pages. I'm not sure if you've seen notifications like so-and-so bought this product 3 hours ago or something. Same idea to that, but yeah.
Is it mainly physical products, Sterling, that you sell, or is it kind of e-learning or, electronic courses, or what is it you're mostly selling?
So social proof sells a license to use the social proof software, but any business that sells products online or that wants to add social proof to their website can sign up for social proof and add them. So basically it's a SaaS product for businesses with websites.
Excellent one.
How long has this exist? Is this your company?
Oh yeah. This is my company. I bought the domain name on this and I created it. It's not been around that long. I'm still trying to learn how to sell, and that's my kind of problem. But more and more I'm centering my profile around social proof, and I'm going to try to use LinkedIn to get new customers in. And so yeah, that's kind of my plan.
Very interesting. Anybody have any questions? Like, I don't want to feel like I'm asking all the questions.
Yeah. So how do you market yourself? Because you're talking about selling, but really on social media, the most powerful way is to market. And I think you're doing it, but you don't really understand that you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like with the work that you've done with your 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, and not using a like in your face sales approach is probably what is fired or ignited your situation on LinkedIn, besides you just probably being a really good guy and people just liking what I mean, the way you post your ideas, your 2 videos a day, and then you're being extremely consistent. Because if you're doing 2 videos a day or 2 videos a week, however you said it, that's really powerful over time. So how are you going about marketing or cross-pollinating, what I mean, what you do with others?
Okay, so yeah, as in marketing for social proof, it's more through the DMs, like the messaging. Like I've done a few posts about social proof, but very few. So my LinkedIn is kind of my personal brand as like an entrepreneur, and then my profile shows the businesses I'm working on. Like social proof is not going to be the only business I'm working on. It's one of them, but I'm going to have many more in the future. So I'll probably tend to market my businesses outside LinkedIn and use LinkedIn as kind of my personal brand to kind of house all the businesses. And then occasionally do some sponsored posts to kind of make my work on LinkedIn pay for itself. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally get what you're saying. And I definitely think it's wise because you're focusing on, leveraging what you already have. And then if you take that to the other platforms, what I mean, that's a great way to expand it and, to go deeper in, the relationships that you currently have where, you're getting people really interested in what you're doing, and finding new ways to create hooks, outside of LinkedIn, but, that still pulls people back into LinkedIn so you can continue to grow your 30,000 followers, to, 60,000. So that's what I would do. But again, like I said, I'd love to talk with you about the marketing aspects of how you're bringing in your audience, because I think, again, like I said, that's even in your DMs, I think you're really doing more marketing than you probably understand you're doing it. You know what I mean? Because you're still trying to wrap your head around this whole concept, and I'm just saying that because it it took me over 30 years to really have a guy hash out to me what the real distinctions were between selling and marketing. A lot of times people think that they're marketing when they're really selling, and they don't know the difference. And even when you go on websites, I mean, like I said, the mentor that I have is a guy that's, I mean, really, really brilliant. And he just broke it down to helping me understand that, you know, even when you go to the websites where they're talking about marketing, you know, using content, talking about marketing, they're actually talking about selling and don't even know it. You know, I've been in sales practically all my life, shining shoes at 6 years old, and then from, you know, there just, you know, developing my own businesses, you know, when I was a kid, kind of like what you're doing, but you know what I mean, you've got the internet. I didn't have the internet. So I just had face to face, which is a really powerful way to learn how to, you know, develop the empathic chops, you know, for dealing with people, because once you do that, then you begin to realize that you know there's ways to get to it that most people talk about, but those aren't really the ways. And what I'm kind of saying is, you know, when I first got into sales after college, you know, I started reading sales magazines. I got, you know, linked up with all of the sales magazines, and I was reading their content. But what I found is that for me, you know, I didn't sell. I just identified what were the needs of the people. Because when you identify the needs of the people and then you just serve a person at their level of need, you don't need to sell. You know what I mean? That's really, you know, using a very deep empathic approach versus trying to use an overall approach where you're trying to reach a mass audience through, you know, finding a hook that appeals to everybody. I think when you just kind of slow down and go back through some of your own content, like start looking through your own posts where you've got a lot of traction, and start asking deeper questions about why were people attracted to what you do. And then the other thing you can do, my friend, is you can go and talk personally to the individuals that have been attracted to what you do and just ask them. Say, what was it, you know, that made you attracted to what I was doing? Or why did you buy from me? Or why do you want to work from me? Ask those deeper questions. Very few people ever do that, because most people are ashamed, you know, for some reason, to ask people why they were interested in them. And I think that will, you know, release to you so many keys and give you so much value about what you're doing, because you can't really see what you're doing. It's like Les Brown often says that, you know, when you're in the frame, you know, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. So you have to get out of the frame. And the way you get out of the frame is you begin to interview those people that you had the greatest impact on and allow them to tell you the truth about what moved them.
I believe like quality over quantity, because like Sterling's post, like I don't know where you get this content from, but it's absolutely amazing.
I think the room might be glitching because the sound from my phone is coming through the earpiece as opposed to the loudspeaker now, and I got a bad echo. I've left and came back.
Well, that could be it. All right, we'll circle back. I wanted to have that conversation with Tomasz that we were supposed to have earlier in the show. He's back. Your audio is good? You can hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. So
fantastic. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of run through a scenario that could take a community from having no currency to having one. And I just wanted to see what you think of it. All right? Because this is the plan that we want to have, putting the community currency in the hands of the people. So basically, Intercoin builds currencies for communities, among other things. It helps them to raise money. It helps them to get things done without having to ask people to buy their bonds and then repay their bonds, or to ask for credit from a bank or something like this. In other words, if you have your own project, you might want to issue some sort of thing that you sell to investors, and that thing may not represent debt. It might represent equity. But this is a new class of thing, which is called your own currency. So, you know, over the past several years, we've seen a lot of utility tokens. For example, a good example of utility token is Filecoin. You go ahead and use Filecoin to pay for storage And rather than one company taking care of the storage like Amazon, it becomes a bunch of, anyone can run a storage node and they can store as little or as much as they can get paid for. So Filecoin is literally a utility token for the storage network. And we're building actually similar 3D explainer videos like the one that you are going to see here. Sorry, the loading is, they're loading pretty slowly. Anyways, so let's talk about millions of online communities would like to do two things. They'd like to monetize their user base, meaning make money from whatever their users are trying to pay for, and maybe help their users to connect with each other. And moreover, they're trying to grow, right? They're trying to get their users to bring other users. So you could see this if you have a YouTube channel, you want to grow that. We want to grow this show, right? If you have a Twitter account, and we were just talking about marketing your account, Facebook groups, Reddit forums. So right away, if we jump here, like what you could do is you could issue your own currency that's usable for things on your website. And then you could reward people for bringing guests, for bringing, for example, if a guest comes on this show and they have a lot of followers and they bring a lot of followers who then go ahead and join our community, we can track that and we can reward them with our own currency, right? Everybody wins. People can increase the network effect of the community. They can answer questions, while at the same time, they get rewarded for this with our currency. I should also say that some projects can have internal currency for carrots and sticks. You can incentivize positive contributions, such as fixing a bug in GitHub or fixing something on a Wikipedia page, updating. And if people think that you're creating bugs or you're vandalizing, you could lose the currency. So there are sometimes potential ways to influence behavior on the site as well. And that could be useful because, people amass reputation points. You've seen this with karma. Like, for example, Y Combinator has, this number over here is if you post something that's really popular, like, for example, this submission I posted a few days ago happened to become #1 on trending on this. So I got 823 points. What backs a currency? Terra Luna drops 100%. So it's important to, and the reason that's important is because Tether started dropping as well recently. This was kind of scary. Could happen again. Tether went from maintaining a peg of $1 to 95 cents. It did that in the past, but if it ever goes down further, that could really send shockwaves through the crypto industry. As this show is being recorded, there is a kind of 98 cents, and then suddenly it went down to 95 cents. Anyways, all of this happening is a little bit worrying, and we want to see community currencies being used as currencies so then people can actually at least have the confidence they have utility rather than just being backed by a bunch of valuable company papers or some sort of bitcoins. So how do you do it? So Tomasz, this is what I wanted to ask you. I want to go through each step of this process and just ask you if it makes sense and if you see any problems with it, right? So the first step is just issue your own currency. This is not about putting it into circulation, getting people interested in using it, and just to issue it. So for that, surprisingly, requires a lot of work because you have to essentially solve the double spend problem. And once you've solved it, you can build all these applications of the currency. But essentially, if you make it simple, it's just going to be an ERC20 contract that runs on essentially a blockchain. And that blockchain could be a private blockchain where the community would then have multiple people running nodes, making sure that the community blockchain is secure and that it's not being manipulated by some, weird actors. So I think step one is pretty straightforward, but Tomasz, what do you think in terms of just issuing your own currency and just putting it out there and saying, here you go? is that enough to get people to use it or to make any difference for the community?
Yeah. Issuing money is simple, but who will accept it? This is the hard part. And I think we are preoccupied with this idea that we need to issue money. So the easiest first step would be to save money. Okay. So not to bother too much with recording and setting up systems of how to transfer tokens, but the first step should be how do we share information, who owes whom what. So this looks like a safer variant of starting a community and enabling the community to better manage their economic relationships. So this is my take on it.
Absolutely. So, okay. So the first thing is you're saying it's not just about the currency, it's about the debt. It's about the in crypto world you call it trust lines. Sometimes when a person owes another person and they mutually owe each other, and then essentially you start out with that. You don't need a third-party ledger at all. You can just have private cryptographically signed agreements where person A owes person B, and they monotonically increase the amount they owe forever. And then person B owes person A, as one example, and they monotonically increase how much they owe. And so the difference between those two is how much right now person A owes person B. So if they ever get in like a dispute, they can go to a judge and they can prove what is the latest, state of this trust line, which on Lightning Network is called, I think, state channels and other things like this. But in the end of the day, it's completely peer-to-peer with no third-party ledger. And that kind of system can be used before we ever get into settling the debt. Because once we settle the debt, you could use it with this currency, with that currency. What you're saying basically is allowing people to set up these, extend credit to each other is almost like more important than having a currency as step one, right?
Yeah, you are right. So basically, the whole world runs on trust. So we engage with each other with all different economic activities based on trust. And if you look at money, what is money really? Money is just a tool to record how much trust and how much credit you extended between the different members of the community. So it's just an accounting tool, basically. And when you create too much of money, you are basically creating too much debt. You are overusing the existing trust, and this then creates risks that not all promises will be kept. And so solving problem or fueling the economy by issuing more and more money is dangerous. You are basically increasing the risks, and this never ends up well.
So you reminded me of a tweet by Elon Musk last year that crashed the, he had several tweets. First, he was bullish on Bitcoin in the beginning of the year. Then he started dropping truth bombs on Twitter, and each bomb exploded the price of Bitcoin, in addition to other things. But then it came back because there were also the B word conference and others made people interested again, or who knows why things happen. But this tweet was, goods and services are the real economy. Any form of money is simply the accounting thereof. So do you basically agree with that? Is that basically what you're saying as well?
I agree with this statement 100%. So money is just, this is basically the first distributed system. So everyone has his own wallet and his own coins in it walking around. And the amount of coins in your wallet were just the proof how much credit the community owes to you. So this is your credit. And it's a perfectly distributed and private system. Now we are just using different technologies. So we are not making metal coins. We use digital tokens and things like that. But the principle is the same, and the dangers are the same. So if there is not enough money to support all the economic activities, you have problem. If you have too much money, and there is more money than economic activity, then again you have the problems. And keeping these balances is important. And this is the whole issue of any design of any kind of money is to make sure that you have the proper governance behind, so that there is always just enough, not too much, not too little.
Well, so it's interesting because that's the debate that has been raging between monetarists who, like Milton Friedman, who believed that given that the Fed exists, it should act predictably and almost replace it with a formula. And then you got, the Keynesians who want to put more money, like you're saying, to drive markets. And then you have the Austrian economists. The Austrian economists almost would like to have money be scarce or tied to something like gold or whatever. And what's interesting is that's who got attracted to Bitcoin. A lot of Bitcoin maximalists, like Peter McCormick over here, his reaction to Elon was, cool story, bro. I guess he thinks that sound money, as some people in the United States, even like Ron Paul, who's probably the most high profile person who thinks like an Austrian economist, he said, that gold or maybe Bitcoin represent return to what is essentially scarcity, commodities that are backing things. And so, what are your thoughts in general about having money be backed by something scarce? And so you can't issue more money. And does that constrain the economy? Can that also exacerbate a depression? Like if people are just hoarding money, like Bitcoin, I'll give you an example. If you spent Bitcoin 10 years ago, whatever you bought, you could buy a lot more of it now. So why ever spend Bitcoin if you believe it keeps going up? Obviously, if it ever reaches a plateau and stops going up, then it might become a valuable means of exchange. But at the moment, one thing that keeps it from being a means of exchange is that it's essentially scarce. And so if it's even going to be more scarce and more valuable, what's the point of using it as money? It's more like some sort of asset that you just store under your bed or something like that. What is your opinion of the role of Bitcoin and scarce, various ways to create scarcity, I guess? Is that antithetical to spending? Do we need what are your thoughts about that?
You opened a lot of questions. So the basic idea about money and how to support it. So as many economists you asked, so many opinions you will get. But what I believe in is that basically all designs of money that are around right now are okay. But none of the design of money is okay for everything. So the big opportunity right now is to introduce as many different forms of money as possible to support different types of economic activity. So you have a lot of economic activity that can support a lot of growth. And having money that is supported on the idea that there is interest rate and that if you hold it as a store of value, you will get richer next year and even more next year. This is perfectly okay if you use this kind of money to fuel the projects that can actually support this kind of idea. But then in the society, there are projects that will never be able to support this kind of growth. So you have this idea about sustainability, eco-living, local food production, healthy stuff. You have social problems that you want to solve, or maybe you want to make your community more friendly towards disabled people, for example. So there are a lot of projects that that are all valid projects, and the society needs them. And using monetary tools to finance this kind of projects makes all the sense, but the money behind has to be designed differently. So it has to be designed that it is not reliant on the idea that you will get richer next year. Maybe a design that does not include any kind of interest rate. So this all is possible. And then using an integration mechanism that is not trade related, like the mechanisms I like to use. This is multilateral obligation set-off. Basically, you use a mechanism where you can exchange values, or you can discharge obligations in the economy using very different kinds of money as a liquidity. So this could be the future. So I think we need a lot of different types of money.
I think that's exactly what we're doing with Intercoin. So you have all these different types of communities, right? And they have all these different things they want to do. And so you give them the money supply, okay? And then you have to make it so that they can get their members, their consumer class, essentially, to get the money in their hands. So I'm going to run through this quickly, and then let's go step by step. So you get them in the hands of the visitors to the site. For example, you reward members for inviting new guests. You reward guests for joining, and so on. So people are getting this currently worthless token, or perhaps it's backed by a fund that you had raised and set aside for marketing. So this would be your marketing budget backing your sort of fund, where now anyone on your network can come in. We also reward people for logging in, making helpful comments, the types of things that you see on Reddit, Karma, and others. Then once you have that money in the hands of the people, you need to approach your vendors. This is the hardest part that we found, is approaching who are the vendors. Now in the local business, it's really clear what you're spending money on, but in this, not necessarily clear. So a site actually serves the people. Advertising, it can charge for advertising, it can charge for hosting, it can charge for a lot of things. Those credits represent money sink. So here you are essentially as a money source and a money sink. You turn each of these communities, right, into its own type of community. It has its own monetary policy, it has a way to distribute money, and it has a way to tax it back, which essentially removes money from the economy. Once you have the money circulating in the economy, you can allow outsiders to go ahead and purchase your currency, because until now, you've been putting it into circulation based on people's actions, right? Like on this team, people earn Intercoin by doing certain things, inviting guests to the show, creating graphics, moving the movement forward, right? That's our community. Some other community might have something similar. That's how you put money into circulation in the first place, but later people can just buy the money. You got to be careful with this, because people buy the money well, they can push it around. So you could have George Soros break the Bank of England. You could have Goldman Sachs push around the markets for bread or metals or lumber. So you got to be careful with this. This is what causes, someone to crash your stable coin or whatever. But you can allow tourists to buy a certain amount, and then you can have these benefits. What kind of benefits? Well, for example, you can get 5% off on everything in the community that's financed by vendors taking a 10% loss. So your community makes 5% from the vendors and offers some of that to the users. So finally, if you're allowing people to buy and sell your currency, what happens is that people are then bringing their friends to the currency. Everyone is trying to recruit people to the currency. For example, if think of PayPal. Okay, so if PayPal was one of these communities, right? You can think of your internal balance at PayPal as being the internal currency. Okay, so you don't know, maybe PayPal is printing more of it in the background and giving it to people. So if it costs you money to cash out and it's friction and it takes you a few days, that's inconvenient. And so what you're trying to do is tell people, hey, can I pay you with PayPal? I have a balance there that I'm leaving there, right? Because I was paid and I have like $500. Can I pay you 100 using PayPal? Similarly, if you have Bitcoin, it's not easy to cash out of it necessarily, and you incur fees. So you're going to try to get people to accept Bitcoin. So that same phenomenon essentially is here. You're trying to get rid of the quote unquote bad money, which is only limited, use here. So the people who have the money are trying to get everyone else to accept it. And that also causes the people in the community to grow, maybe not in the sense of activity, but in the sense that its currency is now being accepted by more and more people because every member is trying to get rid of it and recruit others to get into it. Finally, and this is the point of the credit clearing exchange, is what you're talking about, is that as more credit accumulates between businesses or communities or whatever, right, then they start to owe each other. And presumably these businesses are large pools of liquidity because they are carrying on activity. There's not just one person, not just one, they're not selling one computer, they're selling hundreds of computers. So whatever it is that they're doing, they probably have some obligations. And the central idea of Intercoin was that if you had one coin as opposed to pairwise trust lines between businesses, if you had one coin, that would be the maximum liquidity. And so you can essentially get from one into any other community coin in one hop. You'd basically trade it for Intercoin, and Intercoin would have the liquidity, the maximum liquidity that you could have with any other asset. And that would be the bridge between all of them. It's essentially similar to XRP, except that these are communities run by people, whereas XRP works with banks and tries to become an alternative to Swift or something like that. So just to sum up, the approach that Intercoin is looking to have is that Intercoin wants to give you your own app, your own community where people interact. Then you issue your own currency. You give it to the people in exchange for being active on the app, right? And presumably that translates into economic activity later on. So you want to have, that's your investment. You might have to put up some money for marketing to bootstrap this. Now, the people then can go ahead and spend it on certain things in your community. And as they spend it on those things, that's less money that you would have to pay out of your marketing fund. So what you're trying to do is essentially shrink your marketing fund as much as possible and make it go that much further. So you got, one person with marketing, and then you reward them with they get another 100 people using viral referral bonuses. Once you have that happening, then you allow people to just straight up buy your currency, increasing the fund that's backing it because people are just buying it, right? And some people cash out of it, which would be usually the vendors, these guys. And finally, you network all the communities together so that, like you're saying, you get a deep pool of liquidity, and the communities become the market makers on this exchange, where essentially every day they serve their members. And so if there's a cycle between communities, it could actually be resolved through Intercoin. So just want to leave it there and ask you, do you think this is a viable path to getting adoption of the kind of monetary system you're talking about? Or do you think there are also problems that we still need to solve, step 2.5 or something like that?
I think you are on the right path, but I think also that you need to introduce risk-reducing techniques into this. So finding cycles, clearing cycles with any kind of liquidity is an important part of this, because the nature of the business network, of the networks of economic activity, is such that it is kind of prevailed with the power law, and in the long term, everything that grows smoothly at the beginning starts to grow immensely, and if you don't have mechanisms to reduce the risks, to reduce the mutual indebtedness in the economy without increasing the risk with issuing more and more intercoins in this case, then you will be in trouble. But from the start, any method works. On the long term, you have to combine. So this is what I think about it.
So I think you're absolutely right. I just want to ask, so when you're talking about liquidity, give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay, from this, please. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I'm traveling, so sometimes I get pulled away. So basically, is Intercoin being used as a decentralized exchange between communities, similar to how Uniswap is being used between people? Is that enough to essentially clear the indebtedness, to clear the credit that they've accumulated once a day? It's kind of like the Federal Reserve System between banks. I understand that if a community owes each other and it's balanced, or there's a cycle, we don't really need Intercoin, right? They can find each other and they can clear that balance together. Similarly, how we have here, like these three people, this person owes that person owes that person. Assuming that we can extract a stable and continuous cycle here. For example, let's say that this person has a recurring subscription to Netflix, and then Netflix has pays regularly for cleaning their offices, and then this person cleans their offices, has a regular subscription to piano lessons or whatever. That to me is like a small optimization. Like how much of that would you say takes up in the economy, like perfectly balanced cycles? And if you removed all those cycles, and you were left with essentially everything else, I feel like everything else is like 95%. Like these cycles are very hard to perfectly, like maybe $5 a month is going here and so on. But like, how do you, what in your experience, when you're modeling these things, how much of it is really cycles and how much of it has to be cleared through some sort of third party currency?
Yeah, this really depends on the community, how it operates, how closed it is. And I have seen really wild differences in different communities. So for a normal business-to-business community in a developed world, I have seen similar results no matter where I got the data. And that would be that around 15%, at least 15%, let's say, and up to 25% of all indebtedness in the network can be cleared via cycles. So this is true for business-to-business communities. But then, if you take different kind of communities, for example, Sarafu community in Kenya, which is basically a complementary currency to support universal basic income for the communities in Kenya. If you observe their network, and interestingly, they are running Sarafu on blockchain.
How do you spell it?
The cycles in Sarafu represent over 90% of total debt. So basically everything is in cycles. So
how do you spell it? Sarafu?
Sarafu. Yeah, but if you want to observe this community, you should type in grassroots economics, just everything together.
Oh, this is who we were just talking about, right? Yeah.
So I did a small research for grassroots economics, and the cyclicality there is really enormous. So basically, everything runs around, and this is why the concept of money there it makes all the sense, and it can also run without interest rate and things like that. So it all depends. It all depends on how tight the community that uses this is. But even if you only clear like 15%, 15% is a lot. So everyone who was ever in a position to manage a business, and if somebody steps in and says, "Look, I will help you," and you will need 15% less cash to run your business, I think everyone saying this would be welcomed by any businessman, because 15% is a lot. Okay.
So I absolutely agree. I think 15% is what you're saying is almost like a lower bound from what you've seen. I'm fascinated by the idea that you're saying 90%. Or 95%. If that's what you found, I want to know, how did they get to that point, and what is special about that community? Because as a side effect, as a corollary, they're basically an autarky. Autarky is essentially a self-sufficient community that maybe because they're cut off from the rest of the world and they had to do that, or maybe because they're just good at it, or they're organic somehow, all the needs are met within the community. So how did they get that to happen? What is the,
They are pushed to, so Will Radic is doing great work with these communities. Basically, the first motivation there was to save the community from loan sharks, because these people are unbankable, and they had to do their business in Kenyan shillings, and the only way to get these Kenyan shillings was to go to loan sharks, because they have no access to banks. They have access to Kenyan shillings via this mobile M-Pesa application, but that's it. And the need to organize a monetary system for this community living on the edge of economic development was so great that basically everything they did was between them. So now the currency that supports this community operates so well because the community as such is self-sustainable. So this is a simple reason.
Well, that's very interesting. It's very interesting that they are sustainable, and I'd love to know, were they always sustainable, or it was a result of some policy that led to that? Because that's kind of the end goal for a lot of the stuff that we're doing with Intercoin, is to make communities more self-sufficient. And obviously that's not going to be 100%, maybe not even 95%, but to get it up to even 20% more efficiency, right? That what you're saying, 15 to 20% is great. So what kind of policies can you do to identify and clear cycles? And more importantly, what kind of policies can you identify to create cycles? You mentioned brokers or creating new types of deals where they didn't exist before, just to essentially close a cycle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, networks are interesting subject. So in economy, networks are not studied very well. Typically, they are studied just as a study of systemic risk in interbank financial networks. But in trade credit, networks are not studied, and this is a problem because the networks in trade credit are much more complex than interbank networks. So basically, the trade credit network is a complex system, and small changes in complex systems sometimes make big differences. So when speaking about brokering, it's very interesting that a new business inside the network can either improve the balance of the network or completely destroy it. And looking locally, so looking from the perspective of two dots in the network, from the perspective of two players in the network, you cannot tell up front what kind of effect will this new business have. So when you do brokering in a community, having a good overview over the network to steer the broker's activity is a good idea, because newly brokered deals can actually ruin the system instead of help. So this is an interesting point.
So do you think brokers that are brokering deals could almost be paid by the community to broker certain deals and not others, to help the community as a whole?
This is the idea. If you look at Sardex, for example, the Italian local currency backed by mutual credit, the employees of the organization running the system, they are okay. They are brokers, and their task is to find new opportunities that create more cycles in the system. So yes, the community should have brokers that are not obsessed with making deals for their own profit, but are there to make more cycles in the community, to make it more sustainable.
That's fascinating. I think focusing on the welfare of the community as a whole, rather than focusing on, let's say, maximizing the individual profit. Well, they are going to get profit. They are going to get paid for their work. But maybe if they maximize their individual profit, they would do that at the expense of the community, like you said, creating less cycles. So almost like, how do you incentivize them to not do that, to help the community instead? Is it sustainable, or it has to have some sort of goodwill? Or they could, like, in other words, if you're a broker and you're good at your job, would you rather go work for a corporation where you make more money, or a corporation where you make less but you help the community? That's what I'm saying. Or helping the community actually will result in more money in the end for everybody?
This is a personal decision, isn't it? So it's good to have a choice. If you are good in brokering, maybe you want to start making a lot of money to resolve some personal issues, but then at certain point, maybe you think maybe I should give back, and you swap your job and you work for the organization that works more for the community. So I think both decisions are valid.
So walk us through this one specific concrete example of what it's like to broker a deal to close one of these loops. What does that look like? So what is the type of business, and there's no loop, and then you broker a deal and suddenly it's sustainable? Can you give us a specific example?
Basically, it's very simple. So when you do this kind of stuff, the same thing always happens. So if you have a local currency supporting economic activity of the network, you will always get a small group of network members that will have too much, and you will also get a small number of network users that don't have enough, that are in constant problem. And the task of a broker is to help those who have too much buy something from those who have too little. And the trick is that this connection doesn't need to be direct. So maybe it can go through a path, through 1, 2, or more nodes. And this is basically how you rebalance your network. This is the kind of the stuff you have to do. So brokering not just between two, but brokering through chains that make new connections. But the end points of this change are important. So you have to connect those who have too much with those who don't have enough.
So the last question I have in this regard is UBI and giving to people who don't have enough. You mentioned that you should buy something from them. If the ones who don't have enough, let's say, are the people, let's say there's people who just don't have enough money to pay their rent, right? So they are either homeless or they moved in with their family and they're sharing or whatever. So the thing is, like, what we do as almost like organic step one or step two is to distribute the money to the people in exchange for something really small, like, I don't know, participating in the community and making helpful comment, or bringing someone to the community that could be very valuable. But basically, all of these things are kind of handouts because the amount that they contribute is much less than the amount they need to survive. And so what do you do when the people just don't have enough resources to buy, right? They don't have enough money, so to say, enough food, let's say, enough for rent. And no amount of work from them will essentially give them the amount that they need. So at that point, it's not a sale, but it's almost like, let's call it charity or wealth redistribution of some kind. Maybe a social safety net funded by taxes. How do you see like that being as one of the mechanisms of what you call the good broker, redistributing? Let's say that a company is so good at like getting money, it can do it on autopilot. It can fire everybody, like let's say get machines to do like 99% of the work, and the money goes in one direction, and the machines do all the work, right? So it only has to pay for electricity and whatever. Would you say taxing such a company, right, and redistributing the money back to the people, which some people might call unfair because, you know, you're using violence, you're using essentially forcing the company to do this. But would that essentially be a rebalancing and creating cycles so that consumers can have the money again and they use the services again?
I don't have a direct experience with universal basic income, but I can describe you what I have learned in Sarafu in Kenya. So basically, what they do there is they give money to every participant of the network. So they get something like $4 per month. So this would be the equivalent. And the question is now, who will accept this money? So these poor guys, they get their money, and the community, the organizers of Sarafu, they worked with merchants and farmers, encouraging them to accept this Sarafu as a means of payment. And they did, because it was small amounts, and these are people who live with them anyway, and so these merchants accumulated a lot of Sarafu. And then what do I do with this Sarafu? And they figured out maybe I can pay for labor. So they started because they didn't have enough Kenyan shillings to pay for labor. They now suddenly got sarafos and say, oh, this is good, we can pay for labor. And these guys got new labor opportunities that are basically financed with this UBI. So this is how circles got created, based on a distribution of free money. So the problem with running this system, giving money for free, is that if you do it all the time, eventually you will have too much money. And in Sarafo, this is resolved by demurrage, basically holding money. So this Sarafo has no store of value. So if you don't use it, it will lose its value.
Demurrage, right? So this is, this is basically, I just wanted to say for people who don't know, basically, demurrage is when money loses value. So at every moment when you get the money, you got to spend it. Otherwise, it will be worth, let's say, 99% and then 98%. So when demurrage was used in the Virgil, Austria, back during the Depression time, everyone was able to pay their taxes and essentially close the loop on the taxes, because essentially it didn't seem like they had a depression there. And even the Mises Institute, which is quite libertarian and anarcho-capitalist, usually admits that it worked. They say, we don't know if it will continue working, but it worked in the sense that demurrage caused people to spend the money into the economy, which during the Depression was actually very helpful. Okay, I see. So in other words, you have demurrage taking care of you're essentially burning money in people's wallets, burning tokens inside people's wallets. Is that right? Basically?
This is how you can describe it. So it is a little bit more complicated than this. In Sarafo, they used the burned money in the wallet as additional source of income to finance the activities of to support the infrastructure for the Sarafo. So there are many ways to do it, but I think we don't have enough time to go into details, but Sarafo is very well researched. So I see you found there are a lot of papers describing what is going on. Also, the organization became very developed, even in a short time that I've been following them. They have improved the way they communicate, the way they describe what they are doing. So it's it makes a very interesting reading. So it's worth studying.
So I think, Sarafo, that's a great. Basically, what I see is that's a great example of actually bootstrap currency that actually works. You're saying it works in Kenya. Who are the people who are currently in charge of it? Like, do you know the project yourself? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm actively in contact with the founder of this project. The founder is Will Radek, and I'm also engaging all the time with the organization, so the grassroots economics. So I'm currently planning a new project with them. So.
Oh, nice. How do you spell his name, by the way? Will Radek?
Will Radek, yeah. Rudddick.
Okay. Economics, yep. Like this?
This is the guy.
That's the guy. NYU Arts and Science. Oh, nice. He's at NYU.
He's American, yeah, but he went there.
No, that's really cool. I'm glad to see a project that has worked, and it looks like they're now able to let other people issue their own voucher and their own currency, essentially. So they
Sarafo in Kenyan means currency. So the idea is that every community starts their own coin, backed on whatever community decides to back it with. So because there are, so the population is never homogeneous. There are different circumstances for different groups of people, so everyone has different reasons why they need money, and they have different means to support it. And the next step for Sarafu is going into this plurality of monies, and this will be an interesting journey.
Yeah, I see here, exchange between community currencies via network token. It's essentially doing the same thing that we're doing at Intercoin.
Yeah, it's very similar idea, yeah. But he is doing it for a while, and he's quite successful. So Will Radic is quite successful with this in Kenya.
So I want to open up to questions from everybody. I know I've been monopolizing most of the interview. I would love to, if anyone has any questions. I'm very glad to see something like Intercoin already working and in the wild. I think it's important maybe to speak to Will Radic. Maybe you can get him on the show as well. I think that would be very interesting.
I do have a question.
You have the wrong William Radic.
Oh, I told you.
I send you the link to the right one. Okay.
Greg, I'm connected with Will Radic also on LinkedIn, and we've been in communications because of Kenya as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think he has a successful project, which is something that's very rare in this space. And it needs to be understood exactly how it works and what we can learn from it, and maybe we could collaborate with them as well.
Yes, they used to work with paper monies as well. They tried to bring it in suitcases from Germany, but it didn't work, and they had some difficulties with government in Kenya. They tried to persecute them.
Oh wow!
Radic went to jail at the beginning of this project, so he's very into it, hardcore.
Yes, he is really amazing person to connect with.
So I want to open it up to everybody who had a question.
I think it was Michael has a question.
Yeah, I do have. First of all, just a quick comment. This was like so fascinating. It's unbelievable that it's just unbelievable. I'll save the accolades for another time because everyone's busy. But I want to understand, please, how charity fits in or doesn't fit in. Greg talked about it for a second, but if you're in your community and you know that people have less of your coin than other people for various reasons, can you set up different pricing based on that? And also, can you donate to charities like you do now?
Yeah, I'm still there. So I don't have personal experience with charities. So the closest to this is what I've been doing a little bit with Will Radic. So, but yes, basically the problem with the money, one of the problems which is very obvious is distribution. So usually it is not on the right places, and creating opportunities to spend money and to spend it for good causes, as well as creating opportunities to earn money. This is what the community is about. So money is just a tool to help everyone in the community. Governing the money is the important part. So the governance is very, very, very important. And using a closed system is then just a safeguard, because as soon as you open the system, when people start buying your coins and selling their coins, then strange things can happen. So things get out of your control. And this is why I mentioned earlier that it is important to use mechanisms that are not market related. So you are not selling and buying coins, but you can simply offset your debts toward others using a non-market related tool like we do in Slovenia. So this multilateral obligation setup. So this is important point.
Right.
I think it kind of verifies that we're onto something, that there's another project that's so similar, rolling out like the same principles as we believe in.
I like it. I was surprised to see this. And Elena, you're a superstar getting, in touch with all of these people. I'm almost going to I'm not even going to add him. I'm going to add SKU to see if you can connect us, maybe make a group chat. But yeah, I think this is really where things need to go. Ultimately, I would like to see, once we experiment with communities around the world, once we get good at adoption, this is what I believe and why I am confident. We could fail multiple times, third community, fourth community, but once we hit it, once we figure out what works, it could be group discounts if you use the coin. It could be the fact that we have a local community app, social app for the community. It could be whatever. Once we understand the combination of things and we've built enough mechanisms by which people just naturally fall into using it rather than not using it, that's it. Then we can go around the world, make communities, and then we can get Intercoin to connect all those communities together. The question becomes only at that point, did we create something bad? Did we create something that can make communities worse off than they were before? And I guess I would like to ask that question to Tomasz. What do you think? Is there a chance that somehow having more money or having a local currency and all these things can make things worse? Or it can somehow blow up in ways like we've seen with Terra Luna or something that we haven't thought of? Are there any dangers or pitfalls to giving communities their own currency, in other words?
Of course, there are pitfalls. So good governance is needed, and I think letting the market decide the worth of your currency is the wrong approach. So money is an accounting tool. It is accounting tool for the trust that you have in the community, and building the community, building the trust, and using the local complementary currency, local money, as an instrument to enhance the living in the community. This is the idea. As soon as you attach market principles on the community currencies and you start buying and selling it, then you are exposed to all the market risks, and you can experience stuff that happened with Luna and Terra. And this is all there is about it. So making exchanges and lifting the utilities of local currency by providing means to discharge obligations among the communities without going into sale of the intermediary tool like money. This makes the systems safer. So I think the ambition of having a single unifying principle like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Intercoin, or whatever is wrong. Everyone who wants to be the only one who will integrate, I think, will fail. I think we need a plurality of currencies, plurality of local currencies. The systems to run these currencies need to be widespread. A knowledge how to run them should be widespread. It should be cheap to run. And the mechanisms to interconnect these currencies should be widespread, very different. There should be many of them. And only in this way we will create a sustainable environment. So any kind of monopolization in this arena will destroy the system.
So that's an important thing to keep in mind. I think ultimately as we go through this, that's why we need to speak to people like Will and like yourself in order to understand. Because once we put it on the blockchain and the rules are there, it might be that's it. We might want to make it immutable. And if it's immutable, then the rules are frozen. And if somebody finds an exploit or something, it can blow up the whole system. So, yeah, my other question is, like, do you think the rules should change? Do you think there's going to be something we haven't thought of? And if that's the case, who changes the rules? Because you have a trade-off. On the one hand, you could have a totally immutable system that's not able to be manipulated. Bitcoin probably comes the closest to it because the miners simply refuse to install new software that does certain things. Or the governance is just so entrenched in the thing that even the block size is not going to be increased. There are certain things they did. They improved, the script. They made it so that scripts can sign transactions and you can have sort of smart contracts. But Bitcoin seems to be the slowest moving slowpoke of all the cryptocurrencies. Is there a benefit to baking the rules into the system and just letting things happen around it? Or should there be some sort of governance structure to keep updating the rules, and people may wake up one day with crazy rules, or their money is being siphoned by governments again, or maybe it's being frozen by the Canadian government because they engaged in activities which they don't necessarily want to do. I don't know if there's a right answer to this. I was just curious what you thought.
Yeah, and I wish I was so smart to know the answer. So I think every living system develops all the time. But the incredible thing is that all living systems are made of things that don't change, like atoms and molecules. They don't change so much, but they interact in different ways. So maybe Bitcoin will not change, but the way we use it will change. So I don't know. Who knows what the future will bring?
Yeah, I love it. We don't know either. We're just trying to make the right system and the right decision for the world as we go on. Well, this has been great. I want to ask if anyone else has any questions. Carter, for example, I think you might have had a question. Elena, or anyone who wants to come up. We have a few minutes more.
Myself, I just learned a lot. Like, I see how it's all coming together, and I love their vision, and I love that they have the same vision as us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was impressed by that.
Yeah. We definitely need to bring this other guy on to speak more about it as well.
Exactly. Michael, were you going to say something?
How do you prevent, for Intercoin, how would you stop someone like Justin Trudeau from saying, we don't like this community for whatever reason, and they would shut it down? How does the community protect itself? Or can the system be completely enclosed so it can't be shut down?
I mean, I can answer some of that as an architect, a technology architect, and I'm sure Tomasz, with his computer background, can do as well. Normally, a system, first of all, has to be itself quite distributed. Like this web browser here, the web browser is installed on so many machines that whatever website you run on it, it just decides, okay, I'm going to run that website. Now, having said that, how does it resolve the website is something called DNS, and it finds the machine. That system is federated, and there was this thing called ICE. Basically back in, I remember 8 years ago, SOPA or something, they seized websites in some sort of thing, ICE. Essentially, they're trying to shut down fraudulent websites, perhaps, or copyright infringing websites. You see that in China a lot too. So behind the scenes, like, yes, the browser will render it, but then the network might not resolve the address. But if all of the systems, the network protocols and everything are designed to be permissionless and answer pretty much anyone's query, if they show up with enough cryptocurrency to pay for the resources needed to, the micropayment to do the thing, hosting with Filecoin, whatever. If all those things are in place and the networks are widespread, meaning people are running all the nodes, then yeah, you could finally have a uncensorable permissionless network. And one of those is a MadeSafe. So you won't be able to do this on networks like MadeSafe, which is the new decentralized internet. And their whole goal is to be as much as possible that. The problem is with that is you could still ban the protocol. It's very hard to do. But theoretically, you could say, okay, you can't use encryption, or we're going to look through everything that you are doing. And in fact, that's what they do in Monaco, technically, and that's what they do in Dubai. You're banned from, well, technically the law says you can't use end-to-end encryption like Zoom, unless that vendor lets the government of that area snoop on your communication. I'm just going to say, as a technologist, and I've written about this before, me personally, I've come to the conclusion that if you're sneaking around and trying to hide what you're saying from the state, you're already in deep trouble. Your society, you're tinkering around the edges of a deeper problem. The deeper problem is your government is trying to crack down on peaceful people, let's say. Having said that, if you're a terrorist and you're essentially planning an attack in an encrypted chat and no one can know until the attack happens, that's a net loss for the society. And the question is, like, if you're not being violent, where's the line? So in my opinion, encryption is not actually the main thing. Being uncensorable but not encrypted could be more important. And what's most important is being able to have your private key so you can sign transactions and sign what you've said. That uses crypto also. So out of the three, using crypto to sign things is essential, because otherwise people can sign things as you. They can steal your money. They can put words in your mouth with deep fakes. And the last resort you have is your private keys and your signature and your watermarks. So that's a super important thing. And second place is having permissionless platforms that let you publish whatever you want. And if people don't want to hear it, they can have their own curation platforms that curate only the stuff they want to hear, but let other people hear the porn or the seditious content or whatever. And then the third and least important, in my opinion, is the end-to-end encryption. Because the only reason you need end-to-end encryption is to essentially hide stuff from other people. If you're hiding stuff from an agency completely and everyone is able to do that, the agency can't do its job to protect anybody. So I think ultimately you have to keep the agency responsible, and you have to keep it doing the right thing, because if it's a rogue agency, then that's the problem. If you're sneaking around, then that's like having during slavery, you had nice slaves, owners, but slavery was still a problem, but some owners were just nicer. So you didn't feel that slavery was so bad for if you worked for them. But the problem is the agency is bad. The government's bad. Or you think it's bad and other people think it's good. But the point is that encryption is not the solution. It's masking the problem. I could be wrong, but maybe encrypting things from your friends and regular people is fine. I think what they have in Dubai and Monaco isn't actually bad. But being able to kick people out of a network is bad. So that's what I would say. I don't know, Thomas. What's your thoughts about that?
I think basically you shouldn't do bad stuff. But the most important thing is to when you create something for the community and you want to keep it. It is very useful to use the tools that are allowed. And what is allowed, it is allowed to trade. It is allowed to extend credit to your customer. And basically, if you don't want your coin or your private monetary system to be rejected by the government, you simply back it on the existing obligation law. So this is possible. So you can just use the obligation clearing mechanisms, and you use the concept of mutual credit to back everything that is issued. And basically you are staying within the existing obligation law. And the only way they can shut you down is to ban all the trade, and this will not happen.
They can either ban all the trades, or they can tell people not to do business with you. That's a weird thing. Is like that's how they crack down on the black markets. Is that they basically took control of the exchanges. If you stay within anonymous Ethereum accounts forever, right, and you have those cycles you're talking about, you can have a black market economy and no one will really know who you are. But unless they capture you, make you reveal your addresses, and then from there they can sort of de-anonymize who you were sending to and try to figure out who those people are. So there is a way to do it, but with Monero there isn't even a way to do that because the addresses change all the time. But what I'm basically saying is like the way that they crack down on the illicit activities is they seem to say, look, to the extent that you need to participate in the non-black market economy, we're going to find out who you are as soon as you surface, as soon as you go ahead and go through this gateway. And that's why they really want to crack down on these things. FinCEN, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, cracks down on hawalas, which is essentially I send you money here and you send money there. And that's the kind of things that you can, go around sanctions, go around capital controls. It's just a question of like moving money through this like informal thing that you can't possibly predict how they're going to move money. But that's an example. It's called hawala. I think it's from Islamic trade 1,000 years ago. It's an informal method of transferring money without any physical money actually moving, right? So I think that's what they're worried about. They're worried about people operating hawalas, and that's why FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, is so concerned with things that they call money transmitters. Are you a money transmitter? If you are taking money on one side and sending money on the other side, they're really interested in you because you could do money laundering, you can help terrorist organizations, and so on. So that's what they're trying to do. It's not perfect, but I think with the Bank Secrecy Act and all this stuff, they've been really tightening for the last 20 years. And sometimes it prevents like legitimate communities from doing anything because they run afoul of these regulations, which are designed to really prevent terrorists from getting their activities funded by drug deals or sales of fuel or whatever. And that's the world we live in today. I don't think that was the world we lived in 30 years ago or 40 years ago, but now with the electronic money, that's their toolbox. They will essentially try to go after the money transmitters and after the exchangers, because that's how they can try to cut off the ability for the black market to connect with the, what do you call it, the white market, the regular market. So that's basically what it is. Yeah, is that right, Tomasz? That I basically describe it correctly?
Yeah, I think you're on it. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, if anyone else has questions, feel free to speak up, because that's pretty much it for the show. We're going to publish this on YouTube as usual and send it out to everybody. And we're going to make little clips from it that you can share on social media.
Let's jump on to Jahmarley and let's talk about what he has going on. We started off with marketing, and let's end with marketing and what he has going on in the industry. Do you want to, Jahmarley?
Hey guys.
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here. Firstly, I love what you guys are doing there. Pretty happy to be here, and thanks for having me. So yeah, my name is Jahmarley Henry. Would you like me to just give an introduction on myself?
Yeah, please do an introduction for yourself first.
Okay. So I'm Jahmarley Henry. I come from like the BPO and marketing, digital marketing space. I have experience in that. Born on the island of Antigua, that's in the Caribbean, but also spent time in the United States, Minnesota, New York, New Jersey, where I did music and other things at that point. But in around 2003, I got involved in the BPO space, call center services, online gaming specifically at that time, where I led a team specifically at that time for poker support, poker online support services for the customer base. That actually got shut down for me because of the Wire Act that was passed by the U.S. government, which made it difficult for online gaming companies to do transactions with United States players, and that kind of added some value to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin for companies such as online gaming companies and various companies that are unable to accept transactions, payment, send monies to persons involved with business with them because of certain limitations. So in 2006, because of the Wire Act, the company that I was working for had to pull out of the United States market. And during that period of time, I also got interest in digital marketing. In 2009, I launched a social networking website. Because of my love for music, dancehall music, I used to stage perform, write, and I kind of pulled away from that because I had a son. But in 2009, while I was interested in digital marketing, I created a social network for some rival groups within the dancehall music space. Doing that, I kind of learned how to drive traffic, identify how to sell products, use Google Ads at that time. At that time, I'm not even sure. I don't think there was Facebook. I can't recall. But I then transitioned from that and identified ways to find trends in order to market products and sell. And one thing that I did was, one of my start-offs was with that social networking site, I monetized it using products like T-shirts and downloads and things like that. But then I transitioned into using a company called ClickBank, which created digital products that would allow, you had product creators that created products. They had a marketplace. They put them in a marketplace. And all you would really need to do is identify the products that were selling well, pretty much create a campaign. What I did at the time was create landing pages and find ways to drive traffic to that landing page, which would have, specific text to engage the visitor and get them to click on the affiliate link. Use like YouTube comments, ran ads, and found out what worked, what didn't work, and kind of blew up what did work. I then used ClickBank, and I would get products from ClickBank, and I will build these pages and direct traffic there. And ClickBank would send you a check in the mail. Now, it's through my love of internet marketing where I found out about Bitcoin. Bitcoin at the time in like 2012, 13. But the thing is, for me, Bitcoin was kind of difficult to understand at the time. It took me a lot of time researching online, various forums, a lot of research for a period of time in understanding what Bitcoin was and how it actually worked. Transition a few years forward, I went back into the BPO industry, and I engaged with a company that was interested in converting their customer database to using Bitcoin. So I led a team that was responsible for cold calling. Well, not really cold calling because it was their customer base, but for calling the customer base, educating them on Bitcoin and converting them from using fiat currency into using Bitcoin. And that was very successful. And then that actually led to my connections with CenterSource, which I'm a director at CenterSource, center-source.com. And what we do is we provide BPO services, crypto-focused Web3. So crypto-focused because when the company started, it was about Bitcoin. It was about cryptocurrency. Emerging cryptocurrency was transitioning to not only Bitcoin, but other coins. Now Web3 focused because the industry, the market, it has evolved to not only cryptocurrency and Bitcoin now, but to NFTs, metaverse, decentralized finance, etc. So at CenterSource, what we actually do, and this is what I'm passionate about right now because I come from a BPO space, business process outsourcing space. Over the past few years, we've been building our internal knowledge and experience with actually providing support services for companies that are the term that we're using now, Web3 based, because we find that there's a lot of development in the space. The space has evolved, but that part has not necessarily evolved with it. And that's where we're filling that gap. You have other BPO companies, you have call center companies, you have people launching companies in the space, but don't necessarily have the knowledge set to provide the customer service that's necessary. Customer service being email, chat support, phone support, to be able to guide your customers through the process, whatever process it is within the Web3 ecosystem. So if it's doing a transaction, setting up wallets, understanding private keys, terminologies, being able to move the transactions from one place to the next, we've evolved to a great point where a lot of people are now engaging in cryptocurrency. And I have seen the shift and participated in the shift from the point where not no one, but most people did not know about Bitcoin. Then they knew about it, but did not have a good perception of it because of the idea of the dark web. And this is with engagement with people, talking to people about it, getting them to use it. And then it transitioned to where the news, for example, is putting out information about it. People get more comfortable with it, understand what it is, don't quite know how to use it. And then people now have somewhat of a better understanding, are getting involved, buying it, more developments. There's a lot more coming out of it right now. So we've pretty much built up our internal knowledge so that we can support companies that are launching products, launching services, but need that support. It's a turnkey support you tell us what your program is about, what your campaign is about, and we pretty much just set up the teams internally to support you to handle the support that you need in the Web3 environment. Now, with regards to the blockchain business trends, it's from my experience in digital marketing and my love for digital marketing, my love for cryptocurrency, where we have developed the blockchain business trends, which started as a group on LinkedIn. And this was like last year, last year in like October or so, if I'm correct. We actually started that last year, October. And the objective is to have a community of decision makers that are involved in the Web3 space together, and we'll be able to provide resources, information, tools as we evolve to this community. So with the blockchain business trends, we currently have a weekly report that we launch. We're at the 13th edition, and this report covers content about Web3, the metaverse, blockchain technology, NFTs, decentralized finance, cryptocurrency, and transactions. So it's put together to provide some information on what's going on in the space at the time, currently, weekly, and also what individuals who are maybe searching online, what they're searching for, so that businesses can have an idea of what's really trending, what people are interested in, what people are engaging with regards to the Web3 space. So that's the purpose of the blockchain business trends, and also a platform used where we would get the attention information out about the center source, our center source services. So that's pretty much the intro.
Wow, that's great. We met on LinkedIn, and I remember checking it out, and like you guys got so much content in there. I don't know if anyone else in here has seen it, but it's great work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I have a good, it's a team of 3. I have a good team, Betsaida Hernandez, Sergio, and myself. And we all also fall under the Center Source umbrella while we're putting work into this project.
Wow, that's great. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to ask?
I just wanted to add one of the comments. It's amazed me always when such a little team can produce so much value to the community. It's just amazing, incredible. Well done for all your work, what you're doing.
Thank you. That is very appreciated. And I'll be sure to share that amongst the team. Thank you.
Great. Do you have anything else that you want to share about it that I haven't asked or anything like that? Like, can you share where we can find you guys on social media and that, how to connect?
Yeah, well, first, we would love to feature Intercoin within one of the weekly reports. So if we can communicate on that, that is something that we would love to do. And even ongoing also, any information that you would like to put out to the audience that we have, we'll definitely like to connect as to where we can make that happen.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you. And on LinkedIn, we put most of our efforts. I put most of my efforts in right now on LinkedIn. So you can find the Blockchain Business Trends group on LinkedIn, where it's within the members are core members within the space that are building, developing, decision makers within that group. We invite you to join the group and connect with other decision makers on LinkedIn as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Elena, were you going to say something?
Yes, I wanted to invite also, I would be happy to join this group, but also you're welcome to write about your group on our community forum, because after every event we have follow-up questions after every show on Intercoin show, you can answer questions as a follow-up on our forum as well.
Okay, I have registered an account in the community, so I'll be happy to engage and participate in the community also.
Yes,
and
wonderful.
even feel free to drop that weekly, drop it in there, and that will go to the top of our feed. So I mean,
Okay,
everyone will see it every week. That'd be great.
We'll definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Anything to add? Anything to share?
Hey, Jahmarley, this is Jeremiah, man. You always tag me in on, hey, how you doing, brother? You always tag me in on your stuff. I was wondering, what's like your ideal, customer? How can we help you, reach that ideal customer for yourself?
So thank you. My ideal customer is actually companies within the space that are handling crypto transactions, crypto payments. So if a company provides crypto as a form of payment to their customer base, that is definitely an ideal customer of ours.
Gotcha. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you so much, Dermar.
Do those customers, are you, let's say, there are different levels of transactions, so, are you looking on the lower end, a mid tier, or are you looking at, an upper tier end?
Right. So I would say a mid tier, but we generally bring everything to the table internally. Mid tier, yes, but we bring everything to the table, have discussions, and see if there's a way that we can actually customize support for specific companies. And we are working on some exciting new projects also within the support space, which would allow us to support companies not only with the standard BPO call, email, phone example, but I'm just not in a position just as yet to put it out there as to what it is. But to answer your question, mid-size and above, but we bring everything to the table and have internal discussions about it to see if there's a way that we can customize plans for companies.
Do you have any partnerships as of now?
Sorry?
Do you have any partnerships as of now?
Yes, we do. We have offices. We have BPO centers in. Just so you know, we have a BPO center. We do nearshore BPO. So we have an office in Colombia, we have an office in Panama, and we have an office in the Dominican Republic. So we currently do offer support for companies in the space. We have a head count, if I'm correct, we have a head count of about 350, 400 support teams.
Wow, that's huge.
And we are working on expanding aggressively.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you to all our guests. Thanks for coming and sharing your story. We're going to repurpose all this information and put it on social medias. So anybody have anything they want to add or share to this before we shut down the space? No? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you everyone on the team. Thank you to our guests that, came and shared everything with us. I appreciate having you guys. Let's stay in contact. Let's also keep this conversation going on our forum, and let's all grow together. Thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you.